How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. This is from 2021 and was released on Paramount Plus. The movie is directed by William Eubank, who is the guy who directed Underwater with Kristen Stewart. The movie stars Emily Bader, Roland III, and Dan Lippert. And this movie received mixed reviews upon initial release, and not gonna lie, I totally get the mixed reviews. It's not terrible, and it's not the worst Paranormal Activity movie by any means, but we got some major flaws this time around. It really isn't connected at all to the past entries in the franchise. I mean, like, the title cards are there, and it's found footage, but really, if you showed this to me as just Next of Kin, and you said, guess what this is a sequel to, I would have said, like, The Last Exorcism or The Sacrament or something. You can't just piece random movies together and call it a series unless you're making, like, La Casa or something. But in addition to that, you don't feel like you're in the moment. Like, Paranormal Activity had real houses that look like places you might live. It brought the terror home to a realistic setting. Now we have a cult that's not something I can really relate to, and those cold, long, static cameras, we don't really get that. This is one of those up and about moving found footage movies, but the footage looks way too clear and way too good, so I feel like I'm watching a movie and I don't ever feel like I'm in the moment, and that really does ruin it as well. And yeah, this movie, it took me a while to get into it, and it's one of those that I'm like, okay, we have a halfway decent concept here. I wish I was more invested. I wish I was more scared, but it wasn't until they finally go into the church that I started wanting to watch this a little bit more. But that's like at about the halfway mark, and I don't like that it took me like half the movie's runtime to finally get into it. And overall, it's not that great. But I guess in order to analyze it further, what's the movie about? No significant spoilers, gonna just pretty much say the setup here. Basically, you get this girl, and when she was a baby, she was abandoned at a hospital, so she never knew her real family. But one day, a DNA test shows that she has a brother, an older brother who it turns out had left a cult. I don't know why the brother did the DNA test, because you think if your relatives are essentially Amish, you wouldn't have anyone else in the system, but whatever, that's beside the point. The two find each other, meet up, and the girl's boyfriend says, hey, we should make this into a documentary and see what it's like, you meeting your family. This does get a funny sound guy who's like the best character in the movie and provides a good amount of life. You get him, and you get a whole bunch of film equipment. This is going to be one of those found footage movies that's like, look, we got a drone, isn't that cool? And they go to the Amish community, and of course, you know the drill. The brother suspiciously starts to re-assimilate really quick, despite having left the cult, and they're going to be weird and creepy and mysterious, and they'll find a secret locked church deep in the middle of the woods. What secrets are they holding? And yeah, I mean, that's a decent concept, going into a place you don't understand, suspecting they have ulterior motives, and wondering what the mystery is. I mean, I should be more invested, and I think a large part of that is because of characters. You know, I said the sound guy was the best character. I really wish we got to know the main girl a lot more. I mean, you're talking about someone who just found that they had a brother. That should be pretty big and eye-opening. And then going to this cult and saying, these are your family members, you think you'd run up to every person and say, how am I related to you? Isn't it great? What's your life like here? Did you know my mom? And you think you'd be talking and energetic and embracing the situation. But instead it feels like we took these moments and said, they're confined to a few scenes and we're going to keep them here. That may be part of why I wasn't super invested. Another thing, like I said, that doesn't really keep you in the world is the way the found footage is handled. And the thing is, though, they do explain a lot of it away, but just because you explain why it could happen doesn't mean that I get into it, you know? Like, you really have to make found footage raw and grungy to make it feel real, and when you show me something this cleaned up, I don't feel like I'm watching a found footage movie. But of course there are excuses. You know, they say, hey, these are filmmakers, they would have nice cameras and we're gonna show that they have a ton of equipment. Although that being said, I think it's hilarious that whoever found this footage goes, whoa, horrible, scary found footage. I better put a nice color grade on this. And I love how one point in the movie, a gun goes off, and the editor put in the ear-ringing sound effect that an in-universe microphone wouldn't have picked up. It's something a human ear does, so whoever's editing this footage was like, wow, horrible events, let me drop in a few sound effects. And also, we do have some magic camera here. Like, early on, there was a shot of the cameraman that was filming this scene in a diner, and it does a reverse shot and shows us the cameraman, but no one in that scene had a camera pointing at our camera, so where did this reverse come from? Maybe it was shot later and edited out of context or something. And there's also this other scene where the Colt's eating dinner and they start to pound their hands and we get a bunch of cuts of a bunch of different camera angles. And their blanket excuse for magic camera is to just say, we have GoPros, so the GoPros can just be anywhere. We're just, you know, if you see an angle you don't know, that's a GoPro. And I'm like, that's an excuse, but I'm not buying it, you know? And I honestly feel like when they pounded their fist at dinner, the only in-universe explanation could have been, wow, guys, that was cool. I'm gonna set up the camera over here. Can you all do that again for me? Yeah, it's not good found footage, and I honestly feel like the director was forced to do found footage and didn't really want to. And probably the same with the franchise. As I said earlier, this doesn't feel at all like a Paranormal Activity movie. We're going to see a cult. Are we at least going to get the Paranormal Activity symbol plastered all around the cult's belongings? No, I honestly have to really think, and I can only think of a few minor and loose connections to the rest of the franchise, primarily, like, again, when it pops up and says the date, like, okay, that's still in the same font, but we're really not doing anything that connects to anything, and you can't just say, oh, I'm giving you a random found footage movie, therefore it's a Paranormal Activity movie. There's been so many other found footage movies. This really should have just been Next of Kin because it doesn't relate to anything. If it was just Next of Kin, I would still say it's a poor use of found footage and I didn't get invested into it really quick, but at least that would have made more sense because, yeah, this doesn't have anything to do with anything. Maybe if we do get a Paranormal Activity 8, they could tie this back in together, maybe have Toby face off against the villain from this film or something, I don't know. And that's the thing, is ever since Paranormal Activity 3, I feel like this franchise is kind of lost and spinning around, you know? Paranormal Activity 4, what if we just went to some other random people? Oh, that didn't work. 5, what if we just did something completely different? Oh, that didn't work. 6, what if we threw a big CGI explosion at the camera? That didn't work. And honestly, I get you can't always tie everything back to Katie, and when they tied it back to Katie in the marked ones, that was so incredibly forced. And I get we have to find other ways to move on with the story, but ever since we stopped telling Katie's story, we've been lost, and that was the last point the franchise worked. And if we do get a Paranormal Activity Part 8, it really needs to go back to the story we were telling. I would say we make a movie called Paranormal Activity: The Return and have it center on Katie wandering out of the woods, unaware of what happened since the first movie, and then actually address what these tapes are like in the real world and what's going on. That I think would be interesting, but man, Paranormal Activity 4 to 7 is just the wheels spinning. As I said, it's not the worst found footage movie ever, but the way it doesn't connect, the way it doesn't use found footage well, and the way it took forever for me to get invested in the story, that's not great. I will say the ending does go pretty good, and when we do get to the climax, it was in general pretty fun, but nothing special, nothing to write home about, and it sucks that Paranormal Activity went from found footage blockbusters igniting the interest in the genre for years to come, and now we just get this little streaming movie that doesn't even want to pretend like it's a Paranormal Activity movie. I don't know, it's not the worst, but I can't deny it. I was kind of disappointed with this one. Hopefully 8 will be better, but I guess we'll see. Anyway though, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Paranormal Activity playlist, where you should be able to find my reviews of the past 6 movies. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist here. Have a good day now.